This is Natalie Lebrun.
And I'm Judy Rich. Together, we welcome you to Lead Speak, school-based SLP podcast.
Whether you're an SLP currently navigating leadership waters, an SLP who is eager to shape the future of speech-language pathology in schools, or a student who's preparing to join our profession, we welcome you all to this conversation. Thank you for joining us on the second part of our conversation with speech-language pathologist Cherry Wright. In the first segment, Cherry took us on a retrospective journey of her professional career as an SLP, serving in public schools, and the many ways she has always focused on student success through her roles as department leader, campus principal, district executive administrator, district board member, as well as her countless roles in volunteer organizations and projects. In the second half, we will hear more from Cherry about her advice to current students and early career professionals who are looking to find their footholds in change-making opportunities. Cherry talks about the importance of building community among colleagues by goal setting and celebrating successes together. And Cherry talks about the current state of public education in both Texas and across the United States and the vital role that SLPs must play in order to affect change for our students. And with that, let's get back to Cherry.
So Cherry, so far we've talked a lot about what you are a master at as far as being a leader and a meeting facilitator. Let's flip it to the other side of the coin. What are some of the hardest things for you as a leader and an innovator in our space?
I guess the piece of my jobs, so to speak, all the way through was that I didn't necessarily look forward to, especially if it was contentious, was the evaluation of personnel. In nearly all the jobs I had, that was a piece of it. But my philosophy was, let's talk through any issues that you think you may be having. Let's talk through what I've observed. Let's talk through what can we do to modify that. And what I would rather do is be a mentor for, or find a mentor for someone who maybe I don't have the skills to do it, but there is someone who can, to help that person. Only once, luckily, in all my years, did I have a contentious situation where I had to deal with a hearing, an HR department hearing, because I was not able to convince the person that they had room for growth. They felt like they knew what they needed to know, and that actually they knew more than I did. And I was never one to say, no, I know more than you, because as I've said from the beginning, I learn from people and I love learning from people, but I had that expectation that they want to learn and improve also. So in terms of that piece of the real challenges and the things that I didn't look forward to, it was those kind of relationships where you had to have those necessary and critical conversations with people that they didn't want to be involved in, and I didn't either necessarily.
Cherry, what advice would you give to young aspiring SLPs who are interested in leadership roles, whether that's leadership with students on their caseload or leadership at the campus level? You've done it all. You've done every level. You've done leadership with students. You've done leadership at the campus as a supervisor and a campus principal at the district level. And then in retirement from school districts, you've done volunteer leadership. But what are some pieces of advice that you'd like to pass on, since today's conversation is kind of a retrospective on leadership?
I think probably the most critical piece is to encourage people to be continuously learning. If what I've tried to do in my years is, if I saw potential in a person as a leader, I always tried to provide them opportunities to volunteer, opportunities to learn more about the big picture, opportunities to become involved in leadership development, opportunities that are provided in a school district. So I think all of that is critical. I think it's important that aspiring leaders observe other leaders and look at the characteristics. There are many, many ways of leading, but the thing that I think some people have a misperception is managing people is not leading people. And I think it's important that an aspiring leader learns to differentiate between those two. I like to encourage them to provide input. Don't be afraid. Have self-confidence and express your opinions, but always be prepared to elaborate so that you can encourage other people to listen to you and to follow you. And again, I said earlier, I think one of the critical pieces of being a leader is being available. Always make yourself available. Do your best to create a positive and supportive environment. And again, I'll go back to just be patient. I know you want to be a leader, but just be patient. Things move slowly. And as you increase your strengths and skills, you'll be noticed. And I'm there to help if I possibly can. But that's when the mentoring piece of it, I think, comes into effect.
That patient piece is tough, especially if you're a mover and a groover, and maybe you've had opportunities to be innovative or lead on other projects, and now all of a sudden you have to learn the ebbs and flows of an academic year. You have to learn the ebbs and flows of a budget year. Like you said, like it just doesn't happen overnight for a lot of things in public education. So that can drive a lot of us, and I include myself in this, a little crazy because you just want things to improve for your team. You see that your team is struggling, or not even a team, like a member of your team is struggling, and you just want to make it right for them. And you just want to lift that burden off of them. And that's really, really difficult.
It's really hard to watch a person have to learn a lesson the hard way. Especially if there's something you can do to help alleviate that. But sometimes to me that's a lesson better learned than a lesson where someone has, quote, taken care of you. So yeah, there's a balance there. I think you have to have. You have to be able to mentor, but you also have to let them fly. So.
What's interesting to me, Cherry, is that you mentioned that very few of your many positions did you actually seek out and apply for, but others noticed you quietly and consistently leading where you were. And that is such a great example to all of us about your 3 Ps in terms of passion, patience, and persistence, because that's a lesson that we can learn just by observing you and what you've contributed through the years. So I want to thank you personally for that.
So, Cherry, you share with us that you are a goal-oriented person and that you find a lot of motivation and momentum through goal setting. So tell us a little bit how you define and measure goals for yourself and for the teams that you have led.
I think one of the things is when you can see changes in attitudes. No one enjoys going through the change process necessarily, especially if it's not one that you don't agree with. And so I think when you can look around and you can see people changing their attitude and coming on board, so to speak, where they feel like they're a part of it and that something's not being done to them, that they have some say and can be a part of the consensus building and moving forward. I like to see people celebrate their successes. There were times when I worked with campuses who were not low performing, but were too low performing, if you know what I mean. And I made a point to on a monthly basis, visit that campus and to spend some time with the staff. I often took refreshments. We just sat and visited with each other. We laughed, we talked about things we still had yet to accomplish. But I think just being able to see people relax and not be so stressed, even though they're in high impact positions. I mean, they are affecting children's lives, that we have to enjoy what we do. And if that's one of the things, when I told you one of the hardest evaluations I ever had to do was with a gentleman who didn't like what he was doing. His students weren't moving forward, either academically or socially or emotionally. And I think you can, as a leader, help to build those kinds of feelings in a person. They may be there, but they become overwhelmed, they become stressed, and they don't smell the roses. They only see what's ahead of them, the picture that's painted for them, and they're not sure they're not sure they have the confidence to accomplish what it is that needs to be done. I think a big success indicator to me is when I see people come together and work as a team. When you stop and think of all the different personalities that you two have had to work with, and to get them to come together and to, number one, enjoy being with each other, but also developing a common priority, a common goal, and then getting excited about doing something about it. That's when I think when I see a shift in attitude or a shift in feeling tone, and of course, I'm always looking for a shift in student achievement. That's ultimate. But I think you have to work with individuals to get them to that point where they're feeling more successful, and then we can all be successful together.
For some reflections about the challenging times that public education is in right now. Coming out of the pandemic that happened to all of us, but especially resulted in specific, profound challenges for children in terms of coming back out of that experience. In our state, in Texas, we're in a world of hurt in terms of school finance. We've got SLP shortages that you've been trying to address through TISHA and the Texas Council of Administrators of Special Ed, TCASE. So developing an alliance with TCASE in order to influence legislation. We haven't been successful at that yet, but we keep working on it. But what are your reflections specific to what our listeners can do in their own span of control with leadership in these very difficult times in public education?
I think it's everywhere. It's just not even public education alone. It's that people have to start talking to each other. They have to communicate. I think what we're seeing just in our society as a whole is we're becoming very fragmented, and I think it behooves us as professionals, because we are the professionals, to educate others who are not in our profession necessarily about the strengths. We know we have weaknesses, but when you're told over and over and over that public education is broken, it can't do what it's supposed to do, we need to do away with it, we need to quit funding, it does not entice or encourage young people to be in such a profession. And so consequently, it's hurting us from the inner core, I think, because unless we have people who love being with students and love the challenge of teaching students and love working with people who enjoy being around students, we can't accomplish the massive job that we have to do. I think we as professionals have to become more at ease in communicating with our legislators. We need to be more direct. I've always, I don't consider myself a real direct person. I prefer to approach something indirectly, but drive my point home. But I think sometimes you just can't accomplish things that way. You've got to go in ready to meet the wall if you have to, and be stronger in the way you express yourself. Honestly, I worry about it, and my husband's always saying to me, "You're not there anymore. You shouldn't spend time pondering." But it scares me that some of our leaders are leaning towards taking public education out of the picture, and that's all well and good, I think, for children who can do very well in private or parochial schools. But here I am again. I'm worrying about our children with learning difficulties, our children who come from lower socioeconomic status, who are never going to, quote, fit in that environment. I think the true teaching happens in public ed. I really do. I think there are a lot of students in other types of education systems who, I don't want to say learn in spite of, but they have some capabilities that a lot of our students don't have. And so, to me, I'm just the opposite. If I were governor for a day, I would give more money and more resources to public education, because those are the students that we as adults who are retiring are going to need to be able to rely on to continue building a good society. So I don't know if that answers your question. I do worry about it, and I've gotten to the point that I don't even turn the news on but once a day, because it's overwhelming. And I just want to hug a teacher every day and say, hang in there. Be patient, be persistent. And I think in time, the pendulum will swing around again. I always laugh. My dad used to say, well, we know how long you've been in public education when the pendulum hits you in the head again, because it all goes around. So I'm praying that this is all going to go around, and we'll see a turnaround in what we're trying to do in public ed today.
I think what you just said was so interesting. I just heard so many parallels as far as like what we know is best practice when we are assessing our students and when we are reporting out present levels of academic and functional performance, right? We know that best practice tells us to lean on the student's strengths and to work from there, and then to develop educational plans based on the student's strengths, right? And what you're suggesting is really like in public education, let's look at our strengths and what we bring to the table and how we can really serve all the students, regardless of their ability to access education financially, intellectually, socially, geographically, all the leads, right? So I think that's incredibly important. And the other thing that you mentioned too, which I completely agree with, is the parallel between you saying that we need to be very direct with our legislators and very direct with the people that, make choices for us. It's the same exact thing when we are working with our family members, our parents, our caretakers, the siblings, the educational teams. We have to be very direct with them in regards to what the students need, how we can accommodate and modify, and what services we need to prioritize in order for them to make movements in their educational success, right? So having a very frank and direct conversation with them will serve you better in the long run than kind of like dancing around the topic a little bit and just kind of like, oh, things are okay, no, just being very honest and being like, here's what we know your student is doing very, very well. And we love that, and we appreciate that, and we see that. Here's also the areas where we know your students is not strong in, what we need to support and bolster up in order for them to make academic progress. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Cherry, what are 3 of your forever favorite songs?
Oh, you all are going to think I'm crazy. I have such a love for music, even though I don't think I'm musically inclined. And my mother will tell you the 6 years she spent on piano lessons did not take. I love tempo. I like reggae, and probably my very favorite song is the one by Bob Marley, Three Little Birds, where he says, "Don't worry, be happy. Every little thing's gonna be all right." I love that song, and when I reach a point where I become frustrated, that's the song I want to sing. Another one is "Happy" by Pharrell Williams. And then I like the Willie Nelson song, "I Can See Clearly Now." Those are 3 that I really enjoy listening to.
I love it. I think it just speaks directly to your personality and to your heart. I'm going to listen to those songs when I get off this webcam here in a couple minutes. Cherry, what's on your nightstand right now?
I'm a big lover of historical fiction, but I recently became introduced to Michael Ivanoff, and he is he's writing a series of motivational books with lessons about purpose, life, and the importance of perspective. So I've just finished Cabin at the End of the Train, and it really is a book that you need to read more than one time because you glean so much out of it. Both purposely, professionally, and as a person.
I just wrote that one down so I can go on Amazon and put it on my wish list. Who brings you joy, Cherry?
I enjoy my husband. We're very, very different, but he's a loving, loves life, loves people, super friendly person. And I enjoy being around him. My cat gives me joy. But I tell you, I say this all the time. I didn't have brothers and sisters, and I have very few cousins. And really, my friends that I have developed over my professional career are my family. And I look at Tisha as family. And it gets a little scary when you reach my age and you don't know many of those family members anymore. But all of those people bring me joy. And I travel with a group of 3 women who were principals when I was an assistant superintendent. We just have the grandest time. But we established that relationship when we worked together 10, 12 years ago. So that's basically, I enjoy people, but I am not I don't consider myself to be an outgoing person like my husband. So we're a good mix.
What is leadership to you in one word?
I guess it boils down to teamwork. I think we have to build and maintain high-performing teams if we're going to accomplish our goals and objectives. And a critical piece of that is inspiring others to follow you as a leader.
Cherry's journey from speech-language pathologist into her roles truly demonstrate you don't need to be a visionary leader to make a difference in the lives of your students and team. In all actuality, Cherry's consistent, kind, supportive, and confident ability to enlist others in working towards mutual goals and recognizing the importance of empowering the future generation of leaders is a true testament that leadership is not one size fits all. I'm still thinking about what I can do today and moving forward to take more of a participatory role in the future of our public schools on behalf of our students and colleagues. Let us know what you're still thinking about from the episodes you've heard today through Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, take care.